Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. Today is Wednesday, August 19th, 2026. My name is Aaron Wilson, and I have with me my favorite co-host, Bob Plankers, or my regular co-host, Bob Plankers. Bob, how you doing today?
I don't know if I'm regular. I've been gone for a little while. Sorry that I've missed a few weeks here, but I'm doing well. I've got my festive shirts on. I've many of you that know me know that I ride in a Mardi Gras crew in New Orleans in the spring. Actually, it'll be winter this next year or whatever. And so now's the time when you start thinking about ordering beads and the things to throw off the floats and stuff like that. And we've my friends and I have taken up ordering throwing rubber chickens. And so
now, is Hans part of this, or is this just you just decided to scoop in on the rubber chicken
trend, basically?
Yeah.
And the chickens are just funny, like if you squish them and then you throw them, they will scream the entire way in flight
as they inflate. Got it.
Yeah. And so I just ordered 750 chickens from Alibaba. So, that's my personal news. Other than that, just getting ready for the Explorer. Explorer is shaping up to be pretty exciting and should be pretty cool. So,
yeah, nice. Me too. We're just getting ready for Explorer. On the show today, we're talking to, I don't know who we're talking to, Leif Hegdal, but I spelled Leif. Oh, no, there it is. Leif Hegdal, right? But we'll let Leif explain how to say his name when Leif or Leif or Life or Hegdal.
Yep. It too. We're notorious for mispronouncing names here.
But we're going to be talking about VKS on VCF. It's been there. It's integrated into vSphere now. So it's part of the stack. So we'll talk to him about. He's put together a architecture guide for what you need to worry about when you're working on deployments of VKS. So we thought we'd have him on the podcast and talk about it, right? So, but before we do that, let's just do Explore, not this week, but next week, a week and a half away, or 2 weeks away, I guess. To almost a little less, next Monday, the end of the month. So it's going to be happening. Partner ecosystem is showing up this year, so that's good. We're ahead of schedule on Reg, so that's good. We're meeting our targets and then some, so that's good. Out of space for the partner ecosystem, so that's good. And all the sessions are there, and we've got the community booth back this year with a community desk, so I'll be there. And then we have some meetups. I posted a blog, we'll socialize that, of all the meetups that are happening. The vExpert meetup is on day 1. You can come in and get your vExpert duffel bag, branded duffel bag. That's cool. And then we have free sensors we're giving away for the lab that I'm working on, trying to do Raspberry Pis as edge clients and then use VKS to deploy a Python app out to an edge client. So it's an interesting challenge that we're trying to do there. The hackathon is oversubscribed, so should be relatively busy. And Bob, I don't know if you've got Monday night open, if you want to come by and be a judge.
I was just looking at my calendar here. I'm trying to keep everything straight in my calendar because I've noticed that I oversubscribe myself sometimes. But I don't have anything going on Monday night.
I think
the expert party was as well, or the gathering.
The VMUG reception /champion/ come sign up if you're a vExpert. Just go sign up at vmug.com. That's Tuesday night, 5:30 to 7:30. So that one's happening on Tuesday. Hackathon happened on Monday, and it's going to be crowded in the hackathon because we got table seats for like 60, and we've got like 100 signed up. We're going to try to get extra chairs, and it'll be an interesting evening for sure. And we have pizza, drink, and all that. And William Lamb and Alan Renouf has signed up to be judges, so they'll be there. So come hang out with William, myself, Alan, Bob Plankers. It'll be like an old homecoming party.
Yeah, we're all getting old.
No, just kind of like I feel like we've got some momentum again. The data center's back. People are showing up, partners are showing up, and so it's actually
What time
some
is the
fun times.
hackathon on Monday?
It goes 7 to midnight.
7 to midnight. Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah,
we're doing a little bit different. We're gonna have 2 AI presentations. Bob, you're doing one, agentic AI for 20 minutes, and yeah, I have to add that to your calendar. I've signed you to do that. And then Dale, that we had on the podcast the other day, is going to do just a general how to use Anthropic with GitHub. Right. So then we're going to just do AI programming. So everybody has to come up with their ideas, do the code in real time, right? Have AI write it all, and then do demos of whatever you manage to get to put together. Right. So. Be fun.
I'll talk to you later about the expectations around my newfound presentation here. But
yeah. It's just just a little agentic AI. How did you set up your agentic AI? And if you were, no one's going to be doing that in the hackathon per show, but we are going to have Dale go over how to use Anthropic and Claude, and then we thought it'd be a fun follow-up to have you just talk a little bit about how you can connect that to your production environment or your test environment.
Yeah, how to do dangerous things safely with these newfound AI things. Yeah. I can do that. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's get on with the show. So as always, first we ask Leif, how do you say your name? And then why don't you give us an elevator pitch of how long you've been in the ecosystem? I know you blog. Talk about when did you start blogging? You got a couple of minutes to explain to the community, as we're a community podcast, who you are and what you do.
Thank you for having me here. So my name is Leif Hegdal. I'm originally from Norway. I moved to the US about 10 years ago. I met a beautiful woman that turned out to be American, and I moved here. So
nice.
I worked with, where I started with virtualization in 2010, something around there. The concept sort of was brought to me, and it's both seemed interesting and it also seemed dumb. Why would you run more than one server on one hardware? But that's all history. So today I work in a pharmaceutical organization. I'm responsible for our what we call compute environment, and where VMware is a integral part of that. I've been blogging for a few years. I think I started about 5 years ago. I thought it would be a interesting way of documenting some of the things that I think about and ponder about. Some of the things in my blog is things that my employer does, and other things are totally my opinion. I put that in the about section, that not everything here is referenced to my employer, but every time I get contact on LinkedIn, people try to reference what I post here and what my company is doing. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. I mean, you develop knowledge based on the things that you do at work, right? And then you develop opinions, and your opinions are independent, and like might not be shared by, just because you think it. At least, in my past, just because I thought it doesn't mean it was actually going to happen at work. That sort of thing. So
yeah, so a few of those things, and then when I was younger, I did a lot of labs at home. I ran my own system and did research things. Now I'm a father of 4 small children, so I don't really have time for that. So it's my blog is a lot of theoretical, where I sort of research into subjects, and it's my way of sort of pushing my boundaries and learn things that I didn't know before. So the first post I had was typically just things I knew and things I worked with, but more and more on, it's been pushing myself and learning new things, and why not share it?
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I assume that for the last X number of years, you've been doing traditional vSphere, ESX, vSAN, NSX, whatever in deployment. When did you start getting dragged into Kubernetes, and how did you get into the conversation? Because I know that a lot of people tend to, developers tend to talk Kubernetes and think about their own implementation. How did that go around you guys engaging in the conversation around Kubernetes?
So I had my evolution, and the company has a separate evolution. So my evolution started back in Norway when I worked for a consulting company that was very Linux focused. And we had some projects for for instance, a larger national federal agencies that was looking into using OpenShift to run Kubernetes containers. That was sort of my introduction to it. And then since my previous employer, we had some Tanzu workloads running, and the current employer I have has a very large container implementation in the cloud. So that's where typically most of the containers run, and typically where all the developer applications are running. But we also have one of my major customers is the manufacturing space. The manufacturing space is very focused on having things as close to the factory floor as possible. Even though internet lines and stuff are very reliable, sometimes they break, and yeah, it's important to be able to manufacture even if the lines are down. So therefore, we started to look at running Kubernetes within the enterprise, and we are currently a vSphere 8 shop. So we have looked into running Kubernetes on premise, and obviously, since we don't use VCF yet, VKS is not a solution that we have been looking into, but we've looked into using either Rancher or OpenShift and sort of creating a separate infrastructure instead of running the Kubernetes workloads onto VMware.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. And I assume that you've gone through with some implementations, or was your guide more of a theoretical approach as well?
Yeah, well, I don't really I don't run VKS anywhere like that. So I know you talked about that you were gonna install it for your lab. I can't really help you with that.
That's okay.
So for me, it's the article is more like a architectural overview and how the services can be utilized and what sort of value it provides. Yeah, I in my job, I'm not directly hands-on anymore. I'm more like architectural, strategic planning
Sure.
on how we utilize the technology, and how we implement it, how we install it, how it supports the business, how we ensure the resilience that we need, how it integrates with other systems, how we maintain the security postures, etc.
So I've got a question about that then. From an architectural perspective, Kubernetes brings a lot of extra stuff to it. Like, is it? I guess my question is it worth it? For an organization, for you and your organization and stuff like that, like, is all that extra complexity worth it? What do you get enough out of it to justify the extra complexity?
I guess it's a good question. I think sort of the challenge for us, at least at the moment, where we don't have VCF 9 product where you can sort of integrate it to the platform, it
Mhm.
does provide the need, or it will, is that the direction that we have decided on. It's you can of course say we were going with OpenShift. You could put OpenShift or any other Kubernetes runtime on top
Mhm.
of a virtual machine inside VMware.
Yeah, and there's a lot
But
of benefits to doing that. Yeah. So
yes, but then to ensure that to avoid nested virtualization and things like that, uh, we was thinking of doing it on bare metal and then virtualizing the runtime environment on top of that. Yes, Kubernetes brings a totally different skill set that you need
yeah.
new tools, stuff, different understanding of things. A lot of the open source community projects at least drive a lot of tools, and the evolution of those tools are really fast. And there's a new, once you learn one tool, there's another tool popping up that you need to add instead. And it's hard for enterprises to sort of standardize, which again does typical friction between developers and um, IT operations engineering that sort of creates something that is stable for the enterprise.
Mhm.
Um, the I think we are seeing more applications being published as containers now. One of them, I think, is a answer to Broadcom's takeover of VMware by raising the prices and by thereby providing a virtualization platform that has a lot of flexibility to run workloads, but doesn't require VMware. The other aspects of it is that it's easier to sort of scale, and it's easier to give organizations the things to run their workloads, and therefore it's sort of a yeah, it's a great tool. I
So when
don't
you
know if so to your question, if it's worth it for companies, I guess that depends. It depends what your sort of use case is.
yeah, well, it sounds like it's worth it enough for your company and for your guys' use to do this or whatever, like
Yeah,
the
well, it's also
multi-tenancy aspect is interesting too, the ability to give developer groups their control over their own destiny sort of thing,
yes.
the whole DevOps thing. So I'm sorry, you were going to say something.
No, that's absolutely one aspect of it, that you can give each developer group or its business unit their own environment that they can run, and it gives you the totally ability to be what's called self-service.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they, yeah, but the multi-tenancy model that they share the hardware, you give them the resources and you give them a pool that they are able to utilize, and they can do whatever they want with that pool
Well,
within limits.
yeah. No, that's yeah, no, that's cool. I've always seen, as you can probably tell from my question, and I'm sorry I caught you off guard there
No, no
with
worries.
a big question, is it worth it? Because I've seen organizations that have decided to do Kubernetes and they get way into it and turns out they just needed like vSphere HA, like they do, or they need, or a load balancer with a proper health check, or, just a better way of distributing, pushing software out, configuration management, the salt stacks and Ansibles
Yep.
and puppets of the world, and, to your point, and I've joked in the past that if IT had a motto, it would be "It depends," right? And so it depends on everyone's different organizations. But I see people jumping to Kubernetes, and it's often a big jump. That first step is huge, and so asking
Yes.
yourself. And organizations don't ask themselves, "Hey, is this worth it enough?" They don't ask that enough, in my opinion. And so
Yeah, no, I
because
agree with you. That's sorry.
it's almost
So
like
sorry.
admitting team or admitting failure or whatever, like nobody wants to be perceived as, you do all this work and then you decide, well, maybe it isn't worth it, but then nobody wants to be seen negatively like that when, if we were all just being honest, maybe it's not worth it to continue doing some of this stuff, but that's people and process things.
Well, IT has this challenge typically that we create technology for technology's sake.
Yeah.
So it's
Yes.
it needs to be a business need, but
Yeah.
I guess the compared to like the traditional vSphere model, you will sort of define within Kubernetes, you can sort of define that you have you can say that you need 10 application or 10 copies of an application, and then Kubernetes will figure out how to sort of do the sort of orchestration around it, what to do if one fails, how to scale up and down, how much sort of resources within the defined constraints that you have given them that it is able to utilize. So yes, there are some sort of advantages to it, but at the same time, you can, if you have the skill, create a lot of the same advantages by scripting up virtual machines with a infrastructure
There's
as
more
code
than
tool.
one way to do it, that's for sure. And so I think Kubernetes too offers an opportunity for standardization as well. And that's where you've got the same facilities, like the stuff is offered as a service to be consumed if the developers want, in a standard way, as opposed to writing a script. And we've even seen that in, I talk about it when I talk about what's new in like VCF 9.1. One of the things that we've done, over time, ESX had different authentication mechanisms for, the different services talking to each other, and your organization is probably the same. It's got different eras, different, over time, you've got different solutions for the same problem. Whereas Kubernetes can actually offer a single solution that everyone understands, and and you can standardize on it. I think there's benefit in that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think so too. And I think and it's also sort of, there are many providers of runtime. So VMware is one. You have all the cloud providers, and then you have OpenShift, as I mentioned, and Rancher, as I mentioned. And the dialect of the Kubernetes might be slightly different, but it's easier than many other things to deploy in different environments. It's thereby maybe like a easier strategy to hybrid cloud than traditional virtual machines.
Well, that comes along with the standardization, the interface to a cloud, to a public cloud Kubernetes thing looks strikingly like the same thing that you're deploying on premises as well. And so, you can just move stuff around and, you don't have to re-architect for wherever you land, that sort of thing. So you can make decisions based on economics and other things too. So
So yeah, it's also the standardization, since Kubernetes mostly operates through code. It sort of forces the standardization more than servers that a lot of people still have a tendency to manually install. And the self-service aspect as well drives the need for standardization.
Yeah, getting away from the one-off management of, I'm building a custom Linux VM or whatever to run this stuff. Like, you can't do that at scale, and you probably shouldn't even do it not at scale, just some standardization. I've been using Puppet, and this is actually why Eric is inviting me to talk about agentic AI things. Is, I replaced my Puppet instance with an LLM basically a few months back here, and just having standardization, like I want standardization, but these tools evolve. Sometimes they evolve in different directions or whatever. And it started as an experiment for me, but I'm a big fan of standardization and and then getting LLMs to actually have a standard and be non-deterministic or be deterministic rather about what they're doing, that sort of thing, is kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, I think Kubernetes brings a lot of that. And and don't get me wrong, I like the idea of Kubernetes too. I sound negative about Kubernetes a lot, but I think it's a really interesting tool. So,
well, I think I'm just cruising through your blog here. I think that if you're going to be a Kubernetes shop, right, then this is, whether it's complex or whether it's worth it or not, generally enterprises are deciding to deploy modern applications one way or the other, and they're going to build it. And if you're in the infrastructure business, you're going to have to figure out how to do this. And this is just a nice way to deliver Kubernetes on your existing vSphere infrastructure. And I get a little confused on the blog. It's like a vSphere supervisor, right? And I'm like, wait, what's a vSphere supervisor? And then, drilling down into that, well, that's kind of like the Kubernetes backplane, right? Like that's what is Kubernetes, like in the management plane, sitting inside of vSphere. Is that, do I read that right?
Yes, it is. So that's sort of the platform that the Kubernetes service utilizes.
And then you can access that the resources through vCenter and manage your supervisor backplane through vCenter to then deploy infrastructure, right?
Yeah. Well, that's and this was brought up to the point earlier, that vSphere 8 had all this stuff has been around in some form since vSphere 7, but it's been evolving a lot. And the 9.0, 9.1 especially, a lot of interesting stuff has happened there. So if you're not at those levels, obviously, you make different choices based on where you're at. It's one of the reasons we've been pushing people to, come up to 9, come up to 9.1, that sort of thing, is because the stuff has gotten a lot easier. That's always kind of been our goal here, is to make the Kubernetes stuff really easy to deploy. You've already got most of the structures there with virtualization. You've had them for 20 years. You can ride right atop all of that stuff with the VKS and the supervisor, all that stuff. You right click, configure the supervisor and just go, So.
Yeah.
So I look at the other integration, when you're planning this out, NSX integration, IP address management, load balancing strategy. They're telling me to go pick up Avi load balancer and, configure it, network segmentation, ingress and egress policies. I'm just wondering, when you're designing an architecture for this, it feels like it's like painting a house. You do a lot of design before you get to the point where you're actually going to deploy things.
Well, not to offend anyone, but that's the difference between IT engineering and developers. To run it on your laptop, yes, you can just click next, and it runs. But to place it in an enterprise, it sort of needs to work with the other elements of the organization. It needs to fit with how you operate network. It needs to work with how you do role-based access control. It needs to fit with your load balancer strategy. Yes, you can use the AV load balancer, and that works great. But if your company runs a other enterprise load balancer, maybe you should integrate with that. There's lot of sort of design questions that you need to sort of resolve and think through before you sort of design or decide how you're gonna deploy any service. So the more complex environment you sort of deploy it to, the more of these questions needs to be answered before you deploy it.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. And I feel like your blog article is just giving us the high level components of things that you have to think about when you're heading into this space, right?
Yes.
Like
this on this topic, yes. As you probably see, there are other topics I dive much deeper into, where my skill set is much deeper. So over time, I'm sure my skill set in the VKS area is going to be really deep too, and I can create interesting articles about all aspects of architectural choices around that as well.
Yeah, and I gotta say, you know, go to the blog.hegdal.net, blog.hegdal.net. If you're listening to this podcast, go check it out, because you know, your next article, I mean, we're just poking at the VMware Kubernetes Service, a platform, a VMware Cloud Foundation, a practical architecture guide. But you've already published another article that's how does VMware VKS differ from other Kubernetes platforms? So I assume this is just a learning model for you, where you're just publishing articles where you know, dive deeper into your learning.
Yeah, I didn't know that my blog was available from that URL. I would suggest using vminfrastructure.com instead, where I actually have the SSL certificate on, so you don't get the warning that it doesn't work.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I am getting a warning, but that might be, I just searched and ended up at the wrong link to your blog.
Gosh.
But yeah, I trying to prepare myself to what kind of questions you might pull off. I wrote something about how it compares to other alternatives. And yes, that's me continue to dig deep into it, and trying to increase my expertise, and at the same time share my knowledge with others. The I would say when I sort of before I became a V expert, it was cool to post, and it was okay, but I don't think anyone really read my blog. After I became a V expert, it's been like 100 times the amount of hits, and it's people reach out to me all the time saying, "Hey, I read this article and it's really interesting," and I'm like, "Wow, I don't broadcast it that much. I post a little bit on LinkedIn, and there's like hardly anyone that likes it there. So it's good to see that some people are enjoying what I write about."
Yeah, I don't think LinkedIn is reflective of many things in, you know, the quality of your posts and stuff like that. But I'm glad your traffic has gone up. I mean, the various aggregators and stuff like that and lists you end up as on. But also, it's a technical group. You know, there's a lot of people. Kubernetes has been around for a while now, you know, but there's still a lot of us that really don't know that much about it. And so, you know, it's just... And we've been able to successfully avoid it. You know, like I've avoided it most of my life. You know, I probably am not going to I'm not going to be successful. You know, I'm probably going to have to learn more about it too. But you know, I'll be reading your stuff.
That's very flattering. I read your blog too and learn a lot from that.
Yeah. I need to blog more. I need to get my blog back up and running. I'm still all of my personal infrastructure is still decimated, but whatever.
Oh, I never heard. Is it still? Did it get water? Did it do damage?
Some of it doesn't, and so yeah, I'm trying to sort out what I'm doing there. So
okay, all right. So when you consider Kubernetes, right, and you worked at other companies, right, I've always heard that you're using OpenShift, Red Hat and OpenShift, they get it. What's your impression of where VMware is in a maturity standpoint? And to some degree, I've always felt that it's
be careful here.
It's one, it's Kubernetes, but two, it's the platform, the engineering ecosystem around tools and other things to help you use Kubernetes, right? There was a whole collection of small startup companies that were offering various components for your Kubernetes environment. And do you feel like that's matured now to the point where if I'm running OpenShift or I'm running Kubernetes on VKS, that these tools and capabilities will behave the same across whichever platform you determine to use. Like, how mature is the partner ecosystem around Kubernetes, around VKS versus others?
I'm sure there are people that have better opinion on that than me, but from my approach, it's about what is sort of enterprise ready. So there is, in the open source world, there is a lot of tools that are published, and a lot of them are really great. The challenge for companies to sort of adopt them is that a lot of them require deep knowledge, and if something fails of them, who do you turn to? If the people that develop them use it on home computers, and you're installing it to run on servers, and you have hardware that they have no way to buying, and you have problems, who do you turn to? So I think that both VMware and Red Hat and other enterprise companies have tools that are great, that allows you to utilize these runtime environments that are supported, and they are supported for numerous different hardware and numerous different software, and that's sort of why the development of these tools are sort of slower for these companies, because they have to make sure that they work for X amount of different solutions, and they also have to make sure that if large companies invest into them, that these tools will be available for a foreseeable future of years. So yes, I would say that the VMware ecosystem has come really far when it comes to adoption of Kubernetes. I think from what I've seen of VKS, it's a really great tool. The fact that you can really run it on the same infrastructure that you're running your virtual machines makes it a lot easier for a lot of organizations. A lot of organizations would probably still define to run the Kubernetes workloads on separate hardware, but you can run it on the same hardware that you run other virtual machines. You can integrate it with all the other enterprise systems that you have, and it provides a more mature software stack.
Cool. That's a good way to put that. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just trying to go over to the legitimate VM infrastructure.com URL that we put in chat, right? And go check out how I got the wrong URL. VMinfrastructure.com, HTTPS, VM. So there you go. Just want to repeat that.
Yeah, put it again in the stream. If you're not watching us on YouTube, well, you should. And
I guess I'll have to fix the other URL. I didn't know it was up there.
But probably just put a redirect into the other. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Tell your bots to do it for you. Tell your AI minions, fix it for me.
I'm trying to go to that URL and I can't even get it there. I can't get it to show up on my screen, but that's all right. I'm looking at the blog anyway. Just want to shout that out. So, Bob, on the security side of the house, right? Do you guys get into any kind of Kubernetes security? I mean, you have to have load balancers. I assume you have to have firewall. You have to have everything.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of opportunity for stuff there, like the admission controllers and stuff like that. In fact, there's been some news recently about the latest releases for VKS actually include so admission controllers are a thing where you've got an application starting up and trying to join a cluster, trying to actually run, and turns out you can control how they come into the cluster and you can add checks to them, and so that's an opportunity to create security scanning, hardening, all kinds of stuff. And in fact, there was news a couple of weeks ago here with the latest VKS stuff of some pre-configured things for checking compliance and security policies and things like that. And so there's that. There's certainly Kubernetes, because of its dynamic nature, does change the way a lot of organizations have to think about things. Like, things are not as static as they were in the past. Like 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you put something out on the network and it had an IP address and it didn't change. And that's what it did for the next 5 years or 7 years. And that was that. But these systems, they come and go. They're built dynamically. They move around, all of that stuff. And so it really forces a lot of the other infrastructure to cope with that. And how do you do that? How do you do that with firewalls? How do you do that with all that sort of stuff? And so, that's where load balancers come into play, dynamic networking, overlay networking, the NSX portions of things, for example, and so, yeah, it's really interesting there. But it can be, and feel to chime in here, like the from a security angle. I often just look at it, it just brings a layer of complexity and understanding where things are at on a day-to-day basis. You can't make assumptions about stuff. So
yeah, to change subject back to Leif, I like the table you have on your other blog. How does VMware VKS differ from other Kubernetes platforms? Because you actually have a really nice table in there that lists VKS and primary focus, EKS primary focus, AKS primary focus, GKE, OpenShift, Rancher, and upstream Kubernetes, right? And then you just kind of call out, what their primary focus is, which I think for people like us that are just getting into Kubernetes, that's a really nice table. So I'd recommend people go to that and check that out just to see, how many Kubernetes there are out there, where you're bumping in them, Google Kubernetes versus Amazon Kubernetes versus Azure Kubernetes versus VMware Kubernetes, and then OpenShift. And I feel like it's really OpenShift and VKS that are the enterprise class in your own data center, where the other ones, EKS, AKS, and GKE, are all Google, Azure, and Amazon. Those are basically cloud offerings, right? So great table there. Nicely done.
Yeah, for a lot of organizations, if you don't need to have it on premise, then there are some really great ways of running it where you don't really need to. You don't need to manage the platform. You just run the pods. So I guess for a lot of organizations, that's a huge benefit with the cloud ones.
Right, the cloud EKS, AKS, and GKE, right, and just the cloud ones. And
then with the VMware, if your staff is already skilled in VMware, it's a relatively easy transition to the VKS, versus sort of OpenShift requires more core Linux skills.
Right. So as you continue to move on your journey, I would like to see you do a blog article that just says, here's how I got a basic one set up and running. Like, here's all the screenshots to enable that. Yeah. And could you do it by next week? Because by Monday of next week, I have to start building my Kubernetes cluster, VKS cluster. So like, if you could get going, that would be great. I'd really love to see that, because I have a feeling that we're all bumping into this, right? We're all playing a little bit in the VKS side, and this is my first attempt at building it out and then going to explore and actually talking about what I experienced. And a lot of my labs have been like, well, it failed, but this is what I learned, right? Because that's what home lab is about, right? It's about doing it at home so that you can break it, figure out what you didn't know, and then do that. And my biggest thing right now, I'm just trying to figure out how to get the binaries, right? I get the YAML file for deploying the VKS packages on top of my whole infrastructure, but I haven't figured out where to go find the binaries if you don't have a site ID for the support portal. And if you don't have a site ID, you can't run the deployment manager, right? They have I don't think it's called deployment manager, but it's download manager. And if you don't have a site ID, you can't run the download manager, just go pick up all the packages, which means you have to go try to find them in your support portal. Good luck, right? But That's right. That's where I'm at. It's like, how do you actually get this? And I got to imagine there's some kind of training material out. That's some videos. I've watched some videos that VMware produces on these topics, but they always assume you're going to doing site ID, right? And they're also assuming you're not doing a home lab that's not connected to the internet, right? So there are challenges around doing this on your own, right? And then, what platform resources do I have? I have 512 gig of memory on each one of my mini forms. I think that's enough to run it, but I haven't seen like what's the actual capacity needed to actually get this up and running on top of 9.0 or 9.0.1 or 9.0.2. So there's a lot of unknowns for me yet that I'm still grinding through. Not that there's a real question for you there. That's more like a complaint.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Well, and I'm looking right now to see. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I would say it's really courageous of you to try it and then go and try to explain to thousands of people how to do it.
Yeah, and I haven't even got to the point where once I have VKS running, I have to put an edge client on all the Raspberry Pis to make it look like a worker node, right? So there is an open source available free download for Raspberry Pi that'll emulate a worker node on a Raspberry Pi that VKS can talk a protocol to. So that's the next one, right? So we'll see how far we get, right? But the good news is, Bob, I got bigger monitors for the whole labs now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Bigger monitors, bigger keyboards. We got rid of the little chiclet keyboards that have the shift in the wrong place. So when you're typing, so anybody that's listening to this has been to the Raspberry Pi labs will know everybody hated these keyboards. So we did buy all new keyboards and bigger displays. Like, yeah, I don't know what, like a 14-inch display versus the other ones were like little 12-inch displays. Yeah, exactly. Where you were like squinting and you needed reading glasses. So that should be better.
Bigger.
Yeah, that should be better. But it is interesting to dive down, and I know a lot of people that have now gotten 9 up and installed that have not ventured into the the Kubernetes world yet, right? And I think Broadcom and VMware under Broadcom will continue to move forward on Kubernetes workloads, right? I think that even though, Bob, it might be more complicated, I think that we're thinking that a lot of new workloads will be Kubernetes based out of engineering. And when you look at platform engineering that we did on the podcast 3 weeks ago, we talked a lot about the fact that we want to be in the platform engineering game. And where is that? Well, it's VKS, right? So
we are taking this stuff seriously enough that in 9.1, basically, most of the VCF platform services are actually running as in a Kubernetes instance that is the platform itself, and it's not meant to be interacted with or whatever, but it's Kubernetes. It's running everything inside there, and so we use all these same techniques there. And I mean, admittedly, that's been a disturbing change for many people from 9 to 9.1, 9.0 to 9.1. But that's where things are going, like if we've got all these capabilities in the platform, what better way to make sure that they work and improve them and to not have to repeat ourselves basically than just to use them,
Well, to Leif's comment earlier, we do make good enterprise solutions, right? So we do make really good software when we target it, and it might be a couple more revs before it's like, I think it's rock solid now, but I just think they will evolve that. And then you do have a full capability of enterprise grade at scale Kubernetes that plugs right into all the rest of your infrastructure.
Yeah,
so
well,
I can see the advantage of that.
We've got all of this. You've got 20 years of virtualization stuff, which is good or bad, but you've got all of the stuff that you know how it works, all that stuff. And then you want to do this, you just layer it on top. You right click, you deploy the supervisor. So answer a few questions. Yeah.
So Leif, any comments before I take you through what excites you going forward and what scares you going forward? But before we transition into the last segment here, any other comments that you'd like to pass on? as people look at VKS?
No,
And
I
no
don't
is
have.
okay. No is
Yeah,
totally fine. Just
yep.
always give you that before I start pinging you. So
Okay.
for the last segment, we always ask our guests, what excites you about computer science and infrastructure going forward for the next year? What do you think is going to be super cool?
I think the sort of starting to really the organization I work for, we have absolutely, we're getting useful data out of our AI models, and we're using it for medical research. But vast majority of enterprises have investment into AI, but not really getting any value out of it. I think the next year sort of provide more maturity towards the use of AI, and we will see more real business value coming out of AI, and it's driving sort of more like the evolution of how things going to change for IT professionals working in a world where AI is a integral part of everyone's job.
Yeah, I agree with you there. People are starting to figure out how to use this stuff for real now. You know, it's not just a toy, but starting to build real things on it. And so, yeah, I see where you're going.
Nice. What scares you?
Well, there's a lot of things that scare me, but the
Or
thing
what keeps you up at night?
my kids. Um,
I was waiting for that
As a
one.
father, 4 kids, how can you not? Yeah.
no, so the um, for me in my daily life, it's sort of the as I mentioned, we are on vSphere 8. vSphere 8 is end of life in October. We have multiple data centers that all run really important workloads where downtime is not an option. And by a certain date, they should ideally be running VCF 9.1 or something in that line.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of the project that really takes all my energy at the moment.
October of next year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But being a pharmaceutical, we have certain like regulatory rules to abide by, and
you end up starting way earlier than you can't start that project in September of next year, for example. No. Or you shouldn't. You can do whatever you want. You shouldn't start it.
Yes. So that's sort of how we will sort of scale VCF to be a suitable tool for a global organization, and how we architect workload domains, how will we architect the management domains. Will we have more than one management domain? Where would they be? We also operate our manufacturing space in what's called a Purdue model, where it's segregations between OT and IT workloads, and how will new tools play a role into that? How can new tools like NSX and vDefend that we're not using too much of today, how can they sort of integrate and provide more opportunities within this? So one of the advantages with going the private cloud route from VMware is, of course, that we get more tools that we that we should use. And for us, it will be like, how do we use them and how do we get good value out of them?
Cool.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got your work cut out for you, right? For the next year, right? I meant to ask you, what city are you based in?
I work out of a city or town called Sleepy Hollow, which is in New York. We have our corporate headquarters in Tarrytown. Personally, I live in a town called Cornwall, which is an hour north of here, but still in New York State.
Now, is this the Sleepy Hollow that is in the Halloween stories? Yes.
That's the Headless Horseman.
Yeah. You
Place,
must have a lot of fun come October, right? Yeah, like a lot of.
Yeah, there's a Sleepy Hollow has a lot of focus on that story, and
Yeah, sure. Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, that transitions us into the V Barbecue Report, right? We always ask our guests, like, do you ever get outside to do some barbecue? Me and Bob smoke meats, we charcoal meats, we do briskets. I like to do pork ribs. Do you ever get out and do any barbecue in your backyard, or do you have a favorite barbecue restaurant?
If you don't like meat, that's fine. If
vegetables.
if you could put something on a grill right now, what would it be?
Yeah, so I do grill all year round. We typically start our grill season on January 1st and continue till New Year's Eve. Exactly. Me and my wife think that any meat tastes much better on a grill than it does in the oven.
Yeah, we will
and then after moving to the US, I started smoking too. So it's I smoke fish, I smoke chicken, I do ribs, I do pork butts. I haven't really tried brisket yet. It's maybe later in life when the kids actually will eat it and it's worth the time.
There's
it takes.
That, yes, It's
so
for you to eat by yourself. Yes,
I've tried to smoke fish, and I feel like that I smoke it so much that I end up, getting a smoked piece of fish that could hang in a larder for like 5 years and never go bad because it's like a brick. I could pound nails with it. Like, how do you decide how much to smoke fish to determine when it's done?
Yeah, I don't. So long time ago, I bought a smoker that's supposed to help you smoke fish and make like cold smoke and hot smoke and stuff. But now I do more. I buy a fillet of salmon.
Mm-hmm.
I put brown sugar over it, and I put dill over it. I lay it on the smoker, and it's typically like 2 hours. So it's
at 220 or something like that. 220 for a couple hours.
Yeah, so it's get caramelized on top of it, and it reaches around the core temperature for fish. So
yeah,
I guess it's a way of cooking it, not necessarily preserving it.
Yeah, I think I just need to, ChatGPT or another AI and get the internal temperature and then just watch it.
It's a better recipe, is all.
Yeah, that's what it really comes down to. So I don't think I've ever got the internal temperature, how long to smoke it, and what's the temperature of fish. I just put it on and I smoke it, and I think I smoke it for about what I normally would smoke my meat, and it ends up being
8 hours later. You have salmon turkey.
Yeah, that's right. I got salmon turkey. Tough.
It's easier with pork where you want the fat to melt,
right?
But you don't want that for the fish, and it's like uneatable.
Yes. Right. Well, it tastes like my father used to buy Nordic smoked herring or whatever, and that stuff was smoked. It was smoked, right? And it was fine. I enjoyed it, but that's not what I was going for when you're inviting guests over to have some nice smoked barbecue.
No.
Smoke. Yeah,
We did in Norway. We traditionally have smoked fish the way that your father did there with the herrings, because that was about preserving it. So that
it's preserving it. Yep,
months later.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing. I go to Costco and get a big slab of salmon, and then I put it in salt basically to cure it. Salt, coriander, dill, a little bit of sugar and all that stuff. And then so you let it sit like that for a couple of days in the fridge. And then you put it in the smoker and you cold smoke that for a while, and that's terrific, but yeah, that's not heated at all. So, but I'm looking forward to do that. Nice. I basically have to have cold weather outside because otherwise it becomes unsafe. But so I'm looking forward to the weather. The temperature's cooling off up here in Wisconsin to,
get outside.
Do that. Yeah. So cool.
So Leif Hegdal. Leif Hegdal. Say it one more time.
Leif Hegdal.
Leif Hegdal. Okay. Your broad is vminfrastructure.com. If you made it to the end of this podcast, go check it out. Check out his blog and give him some more traffic, because he's in it for the traffic. I know he says he's not, but I know he is. Everybody likes a little endorphin and rush you get when you look at your numbers. But it's a great, nice little blog, and I'll follow along to see if you can give us some more data on VKS over time, because I think it's an interesting subject. Are you on Twitter?
I have a Twitter profile, but I hardly post
You
there.
never tweet? Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Or X, whatever it is. It's good.
And
I notice on when I search you on Google, I see you have a LinkedIn page as well. So, you can go give him a follow, or, see if he'll follow you back on LinkedIn. Anything else? Final words before we call it a wrap?
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, thanks for putting an article on VKS up, because we're looking for VKS content running on VCF. It's we're going to keep marching the ball forward. So thanks a lot. Good to have you here.
Cool.
Bob, thanks a lot. Leif, thanks a lot.
Eric.
Everybody have a good rest of your afternoon, and we'll be back again next week. We got somebody coming in to talk about GPU strategies, so it should be fun.
Nice.